So Be'ezras Hashem, we jump back to the beginning of Torah Hey, where we did the very first paragraph yesterday. We're just going to review quickly inside. And we begin with Lashon Rabbeinu Zchon Livracha. This Torah is Rebbe Nachman's own words himself. And it goes on the pasuk, B'chatzotzos v'kol shofar harilu fnei Hashem. We shall blow trumpets and shofars before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Rebbe Kitzar Kol Adam Leimar Kol Ha'olam Lo Nivra Ela B'Shvili. The Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us that each and every Yid needs to say that the whole world was only created B'Shvili for me. Says the Rebbe, obviously, or maybe not so obviously, but to the Rebbe it's obvious. To others, Sefarim we mentioned yesterday, say a similar thing. It's obvious that this is not meant to be taken as an egocentric and sort of self-obsessed perspective, right? Where everything that's happening is just for me. Says the Rebbe, no, the whole world is for you to fix, right? So Memela nimsa k'sha'olam niver b'shvili sarach ani lirais ula ayin b'chol eis b'tikkun ha'olam. I have to be constantly considering how I can do my part to rectify the world, ula malis chesron ha'olam, and to fulfill the lack of the world, ula spal bavuram, and to daven for the world. And in this context, I think when we say the world, we don't mean the whole entire world, right? None of us are expected to mamish save the whole world, but the little bit that we can do, we can help another person fill their lack. You can daven for another person, and even tefillah. Certainly it can't hurt to daven for the whole world, for big things. As if you were like the president or the prime minister. I mean, as if ki'ilu, your agenda covered things that are so rachik from you, but they're on your desk. You can't do anything practically about them. You can daven about them. So the Rebbe says this tefillah, to be misak in the world, the in and out tefillah him b'shnei panim. There are two aspects to the tefillah. And koydem gzar din mispalim seder tefillah. Before there's a gzar din that's been handed down min hashamayim, then we can daven regularly. We can daven like tefillahs, words of prayer. Ve'ein sarach lahalbish tefillah, and there is no need to be malbish the tefillah, to enclothe the prayer, which we're going to see what that means. But after the gzar din has already been passed down, then we need to be malbish the tefillah. We need to sort of hide the prayer. We need to slip the prayer in like a Trojan horse, so that the accusatory angels who stand are rooted in the left side in Midas Hadin will not be mekatrig, will not come to attack those prayers. And this is rooted in a pasuk Daniel that b'gzeiras irim piskamin, meaning once the gzar din has been handed down, right? The kadishin, the tzaddikim, the holy ones, are b'maimer she'eltin. She'eltin, they say their prayer b'maimer, and they put it into a Torah. They put it into a maimer, and that's the way that they daven. They hide it, and they enclose the prayer in Torah. As ayat tzaddikim al bishim she'ilasam b'maimer. This, by the way, interestingly enough, just thematically connects with what we learned toward the end of Torah Beis, where the Rebbe said in some interesting way that the Torah that we learn, right, is all letters of neshamas that comes into tefillah. Remember, in our tefillah is malbish them. Over here he's speaking about tefillah that's being enclosed by the Torah. It's all the same theme about the interconnectivity between Torah and tefillah that really began in Torah Aleph, that it keeps on playing with this concept of the connection and correlation between Torah and tefillah. So here comes the $1 million question, and the £1 million question, we would say here, which is how is the tzaddik supposed to know whether the gzar din has already been handed down or whether it hasn't been? Says the Rebbe, when he says anachnu, he's being very kind, because you're going to see the madrega that he's talking about. What's anachnu? So obviously everything has to be relevant on every madrega, but this is pretty wild stuff. So this is a very high madrega. He says Yechoylin Anachnu, which is like the highest. I mean the bit before the mitzvah. I'm sorry. Right, the achazadin al yedei mitzvah shano oisim. We're going to see. We're going to see right through the mitzvahs that we do. Somehow Yechoylin Anachnu leida. Through that, we are able to know, which again is like the highest level of mekubalim, as we're going to see in great tzaddikim. But there are those who, through the mitzvahs they do, are able to know bein kodim gizar din la'achar gizar din, whether the gizar din has been handed down or whether it has not been handed down yet. How? Says the Rebbe, a person who is performing the mitzvahs with such incredible ecstasy and joy and excitement and pleasure, where a person literally does not want any schar in olam haba at all. The only thing he wants from Hashem, give me another opportunity to serve you with this level of dveikus, with this level of relational connection, with this level of intimacy. Which is a teaching from the Maggid that's really probably from the Baal Shem, that's reflected by basically the whole first generation of tzaddikim, of Talmidei HaMaggid, all quote this very same thing, one way or another. Schar mitzvah. That the schar mitzvah is another mitzvah, right? And over here it has a double meaning, right? Because the simple pshat is schar mitzvah, that the reward of one mitzvah is that a person will get another mitzvah to do, which is difficult to understand if we don't understand the pleasure of a mitzvah. Otherwise, what's the schar? Otherwise, meaning memela, if I'm getting schar from the first mitzvah, and that goes up to shmayim, part of the schar is that I'll get another mitzvah, and then I'll get more schar, and maybe that's the way that you can learn it on a pasha level. But a much deeper understanding is that a person comes to a level of avodas Hashem and a level of das and a level of consciousness in serving God, where the schar of the mitzvah not is another mitzvah, but is that mitzvah itself. That's the schar of the mitzvah, is mitzvah, right? Is the fact that a person was engaged in a mitzvah milashen savsa, right? Which means connection, which means intimacy. So you can even say schar mitzvah, that the reward of this mitzvah that a person is doing, it's another level, is the mitzvah, meaning is the connection that a person gets. Rebbe Nachman is putting all of that together and saying that we can also bring that back to the Pashup shot, where it isn't speaking about that mitzvah itself, but it's speaking about another mitzvah. But the Rebbe says, why is that schar? Because the person gets so much pleasure and joy out of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by doing a mitzvah, that all he wants is the opportunity to do another mitzvah, which is the other opportunity to have another mitzvah, right? Which is tzavsa, which is relationship with Hashem. So schar mitzvah is mitzvah ki hunena mea mitzvah ba'atzmai, because he wants the mitzvah itself.
Story.
Mamish. Right? In the same way, the Baal Shem thought that he lost his whole Olam Haba. He started dancing, and he said, good, now I could serve Hashem, without Olam Haba, just to serve Hashem. It's a slightly different bechina, but it's a similar theme. Similar theme. This is the difference between the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu and the prophecy of the other Nevi'im as it relates to you and me, meaning as it relates to our level, where we are not Nevi'im, but there's going to be something relevant to us here. Compares Rashi, like Rashi brings Vayidaber Moshe Rosh Hamatos. Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to the head of the tribes, and he said, Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem. This is the thing. Zeh hadavar. This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has commanded. Pairs Rashi. Rashi brings from Chazal, Kol Nevi'im nisnaba b'koy amar Hashem. Noisav le'eh Moshe shenisnaba b'zeh hadavar. All the other prophets said their nevuah with the words koy amar Hashem, and koy is very vague, right? Koy v'ani v'anar nelcha ad koy chana kochav hey. Whole thing, right? I give a shir about that once. Koy is very vague, and zeh is Chazal say in this week's parsha, Rashi, zeh kelev anveyu marabetz boy. They were able to point with their finger, right? This zeh is mamish zeh davar. Says the Rebbe. So what does that have to do with doing mitzvahs with joy, mitzvahs without joy, schar in this world, next world? What's going on? Says Rebbe Nachman, and I think that this is an original connection between these two Mamar Chazal, which seem intuitive, but I wasn't able to find it in an earlier source, and I looked. There's a separate Maimar Chazal, which also many of us are familiar with, that says that Moshe Rabbeinu's nevuah differed from the other prophecy of the other Nevi'im, because Moshe saw through what's called an aspaklaria ha'me'ira. Moshe Rabbeinu saw through an absolutely clear window, and the other Nevi'im saw through aspaklaria she'ena me'ira. That Maimar Chazal is separate from the Maimar Chazal that says zeh and kai. And again, it's intuitive, but the Rebbe says that it's the same thing. Right? This that Moshe Rabbeinu was able to say zeh hadavar because it's aspaklaria ha'me'ira. He saw the thing itself, and the other Nevi'im said koi because it was aspaklaria she'ena me'ira. Interestingly enough, there's a B'ditcha B'Rav that says, based on a Maimar Chazal, that toward the end of Moshe Rabbeinu's life, it may even be a Zayar, but I'm not sure, it may be a Nikla as well, that nistamu shvile seichel. Afterwards, all this, the channels of seichel closed up. And says the B'ditcha B'Rav, that's pshat that hazinu, is not like the rest of the Nevi'im of Moshe, because it's mamash sounds like something out of Yeshayahu or Yecheskel, where it's all symbols and themes, and it's not straightforward. It's not just Vaydaber Shama Moshe or this is what it is. It's very poetic and almost like sort of vague or impenetrable. So he says, because that part of Moshe Rabbeinu's life, the madrega of Zeh was closed off, and that's Moshe Rabbeinu being Nisnaba B'Koi. And so you can even see according to the Berditcher, within the Nebuah of Moshe Rabbeinu himself, you can see the distinction between Zeh and Koi, between Aspaklari Me'ira and Aspaklari She'ena Me'ira. What does that have to do with us? Huh? Beautiful, yes. And again, Koi, because Malchus is vague, right? So it's a world that's closed up. Beautiful. So what does it have to do with us? Each and every one of us in our own prophetic service of Hashem, because we're B'nai Nevi'im, and so there's always an aspect of prophecy inside of us. We have that in our service of Hashem. There's a person who is doing the mitzvah for Olam Haba. He has no interest in putting on tefillin, has nothing from it, feels nothing from it, understands nothing about it, and is doing it because he ticks a box and he believes that one day he's going up to Hashemayim and he's going to get schar for the mitzvah, but the mitzvah itself is a drag and a bore, chas v'shalom. If you would not give him Olam Haba, he would not do it, and this is mamish the point that Aiden was making, right? In this Bechina, the other side of the coin, that if you would take away the Olam Haba, he'll go home. The Baal Shem, you took away his Olam Haba, he started to dance. Right? He says, now I'm mamish free from this whole thing of Olam Haba. It's like, what a crazy thing. Right? It's not what we're serving Hashem. We could mamish enjoy Yiddishkeit, and that's our schar. So says the Rebbe, okay, he's serving Hashem, but Zebechinas Koi. This is Aspaklari She'ena Me'ira. This is not Avodas Hashem with a clear window. This is some kind of cloudy, foggy way to serve God. This is not the ideal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want people just going through life, and just schlepping through Hanukkah and Sukkot and Pesach. I always go to the Yom Tovim because they're so precious. But all of it, tzitzis, tefillin, and even the less exciting halachas, the mitzvahs leisase. Not stam, because Olam Haba one day. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted Yafasha Achas Torah Tshuva Ma'asim Tovim Ba'olam Hazeh Mikol Chai Olam Haba, like the Baal Tanya famously writes in Tanya, right, that there are levels of dvekas that a neshama could reach paradoxically in this world that you never ever could reach in the next world. Just to be mishalev, this famous thing of the Geulah, on his deathbed, just stroking his tzitzis, like, I'll never have this opportunity ever again. When we're in a guf, we don't understand, right? But the only way that a person can reach that madrega is with consciousness. If we're robots and nobody teaches us anything about how the mitzvahs are supposed to be, we'll say it again, an immersive spiritual program for consciousness expansion, and that's what halacha is supposed to be. So then, we'll do it maybe, but we don't feel anything about it. That, says the Rebbe, that's called Aspaklaria She'ena Me'ira. It's going to be very difficult for our communities to function properly if the whole time we're just looking through life through a clouded Aspaklaria She'ena Me'ira. Of course, we're not connected to Yiddishkeit, because it's hard to be connected to Yiddishkeit when it's an Aspaklaria She'ena Me'ira. It's like a window; it's full of mud. Can't see anything.
It's better than doing it for Gashmis, like for covered.
Yes. And again, let's remember that there is a level of emunah there that's admirable, right? Sacha Kol, the person believes in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Somebody sent me an email recently, whole tirade against Hashem and how things are going absolutely miserably in the person's life, horrible. And I was reflecting afterwards, and I botched the whole thing because apparently I didn't know how to give this person what they needed, and I feel very, very, very terrible about it. And I tried to be as compassionate as I possibly could. And some people, no matter what you say, there's so much pain that I had to ask at a certain point in the conversation, what do you want? I'll give you whatever you want. Just tell me, why did you email me? Because if you're not looking for any kind of response, so say it. I'll sit with you in silence, which is very difficult to do over an email. I can't send blank emails. I have to say something. But it was a terrible, terrible experience. I feel horrible about it. Hashem should be mechaper for me. Huh?
Sounds like that, but I'm going to spray this.
I guess. But I was reflecting afterwards, and he says, listen, with all the kashas on Hashem, Sachakal, there was never any point in the email where this person doubted Hashem. There's an Hashem, and he hates me. That's the sort of the theme of the email. And I was thinking, Mi Ka'amcha Yisrael, That like the possibility of there actually not being Hashem never entered this person's mind. And it was Gewalt. It was something special. Anyway, so of course there's an admirable nekuda of it, but the Rebbe says, let's call a spade a spade. That's not the ideal. It's like a person who sees something very far away. He doesn't see anything in front of him now. He's looking at something far away, and like if you look at something that's super far, you don't know exactly what it is, and it's very vague, and it's difficult to get passionate about that. A person's looking beyond this world. A person's looking somewhere else, that maybe one day I'll get schar in another realm. That's called aspaklaria she'ina me'ira. It's the nevuah of koi, because you can't, it's very distant. The shilum sachar nikra b'shem navi, says the Rebbe, aside from the fact that the payment of schar is already called navi, because navi is Rashi Tevis of yavai verina noise alumoisav. Because the pasuk says, right, that refers to the planting process when it's difficult. Hazar bedima, right? Bayava verina noise alumoisav. Verini exairu. Ultimately, when you come back and you get what you planted, and you get the benefits and the really the reward, that's what we're speaking about. Gewalt, that's a bechina of schar. Yavai verina nais elamaisav is Rashi Tevis navi. The shamba pasuk hazeh nirmaz al shilim sachar, like we just said. That's the nekuda of planting. Shenit star ba'asiyasa. It's difficult for the person while you're doing it, but ba'yavai verina nais elamaisav she yismach la'asid. In the future, a person's going to be able to reap the rewards from that. She yikabel schar mitzvahs and Rashi Tevis shal yavai verina nais elamaisav Rashi Tevis navi. So that's a nevuah because nidvios is connected to schar, but it's aspaklar she'ina me'ira. It's a nevuah, Yavai Verina Nais Elamaisav Navi of La'asid Lavai, of an Eis Rachik. Abel Navi Shemis Naba B'Zal Davar, but there's a tzaddik, there's a Navi, there's a tzaddik inside all of us, there's a Navi inside all of us. Shemis Naba B'Zal Davar, that's mamish serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with an aspaklaria me'ira, where it's not about the world to come. She'ena roitza b'schara mitzvahs, he doesn't want any reward for the mitzvahs, ela roitza b'mitzvah ba'atzma. He wants the mitzvah itself, he wants the connection itself, she misameach kol kach ba'asiyasa, that he absolutely enjoys the mitzvah. And again, it's impossible to enjoy a thing if you don't know what it is. Imagine somebody goes and goes to some impoverished child in Africa somewhere, and just gives him like a MacBook Pro, so okay, they'd probably rather some bread, but okay, whatever. But let's say that they have their basic needs taken care of, and you give it to them, but you don't give that kid any context about what this thing is. Just give it to them. They don't know what it is. So it's very interesting. It looks very sleek. It's like a beautiful piece of metal. Maybe they'll use it as a fan. They'll open it up and fan themselves. They'll figure out some way of using this thing. Maybe it's like a little, like lean it on the floor and maybe use it as a stool. Like they'll figure some way to use this thing, but nobody ever taught them like what it is. So they'll get like a bit excited about it, but obviously it's limited. I feel like it's the same thing with the mitzvahs. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us tzitzis. We don't know how to turn it on. We don't know anything about it. He gave us tefillin, but like we don't know what it is. So like we're just, okay, we'll put it on, we'll strap it on, but we don't know anything about it. And to the degree that we know about our Yamim Tovim, about Shabbos, about mitzvahs, there's so much to know. So that's the degree to which we're going to be excited about it. And we spend most of our time, certainly in school, but even as adults, learning like just sort of how to do the things, right, and what the parameters of those things are, but we almost never, sort of explore now what is it, right? So I think that this is tali on that. To the degree that a person knows what the mitzvah is, he's roitze b'mitzvah ba'atzma, shu sameach kol kach ba'asiyasa ad shemema'es, strong word, shemema'es b'chol min schar. It's not just like I don't need it, he doesn't want it. B'ma'es. Why? Because schar means that I am receiving reward from something else. In a mitzvah, there is no something else. In a mitzvah, I'm batal to the Ein Sof, as we're going to see. And so the very concept that one day I will receive reward from Hashem is mius. I don't want to be separate from God. I want my schar in God. I want my schar as a drop that's melted into the ocean of divinity. And that's what we're supposed to feel when we do a mitzvah. It's no longer you and him, you doing a mitzvah. Asher kedishanu b'mitzvaysav. Kedishanu is malashon kedushin. HaKadosh Baruch Hu marries us in every mitzvah. There's intimacy. I melt into him and he melts into me. And so the very concept of schar is ma'os. Like really, my soul is going to leave my body and it's going to be in some realm separate from God, receiving from God. I don't want that. I want, what did the Baal Tanya say? Dear Alain. I want Hashem Himself. I don't want anything else. Such a person as Olam Haba in this world. Again, it's the same theme we've mentioned from Torah Aleph, we had in Torah Gimel, right? That mamish, you could, in Torah Dalet rather, you can be in Olam Haba mamish here. You don't have to speak about Geulah Klalis. You figure out how to get your own self out of Gullus, and whenever Yid does that, will be out of Gullus, right? But it's a much more individualized redemptive process. You can get out of Gullus. Navi, again, this is the aspect of Navi, which, like we already said, Hainu Shilum Sachar, which is Rosh Hashanah Yahweh Berina Noisei Alamoisav, alluding to the aspect of Schar, Bechina Zehadavar. And this is the aspect of Zehadavar. Bechina Saspaklar Mi'ira. This is the clear window. You see it in front of your eyes. You don't have to believe and have faith and need proofs that maybe one day, someplace, in some way, in some realm. It's mamish here. You see it. You see it right in front of you. This person enjoys the mitzvah itself. The schar is there. He doesn't need anything else in the world. Says the Rebbe, Umishuhu b'madrega hazais. Now, a person who is on this madrega, which of course is a very lofty madrega, but there are still sort of layers, and it's a spectrum. And so it's very lofty if a person is going to need to be on the level which we're about to describe, because that's really very high madrega in a second. But all of us can relate to this, like I just mentioned. To the degree that we connect our mitzvahs with consciousness and das, that's the degree to which we should also feel a sense of intimacy and connection and relationship in the mitzvah itself. But the Rebbe says that once a person reaches the shleimus of this madrega, where the person is doing the mitzvah with such an incredible, lofty level of joy, where a person doesn't want any olam haba, such a person is able to know what a Kadosh Baruch Hu is doing in the world before he does it, whether there's something that's threatening the world in potential before it's been actualized in Gzar Din, or whether the Gzar Din has already been concretized. Why? So the Rebbe says this incredible thing, and again, this is for great Mekubalim. This really requires a person to be on the level. But it's just good to know about. He says, Ki ha-mitzvahs him koima shlema. The mitzvahs are koima shlema, the 613 mitzvahs, with the Ramach mitzvahs aseh and the Shasam mitzvahs lois aseh correlate to the 365 veins and sinews within a person's body, and the 248 bones in a person's body. And so the whole tselem that the human being find themselves in is really the tselem of the mitzvahs. And a great tzaddik and mekubal doesn't just know, okay, there are 248 and 365. He knows what they are and what parts of the body correlate to what mitzvah. So when a big tzaddik and mekubal looks at a person, they see the Torah. Now the Talmidei Chachamim are called a walking sefer Torah, right? We learned how foolish they're standing up for a sefer Torah, not standing up for a Talmid Chacham, only because they've revealed the Torah within themselves, so it suffuses every fiber of their being. That's the Berditch of a Rav, we've said also in the past by Avram Avinu, right? To pick up the machelas, right? To take the knife to Shech Yitzchak, and it's a strange lashon. Why does he have to send out his hand? You picked up the knife, you don't have to send your hand out. Says the Berditchever, because Avram Avinu's body was so in tune with the Ratzon Hashem that Avram's body intuitively knew that it was not God's will for him to Shech Yitzchak. So the body refused to move. So he had to, because it was like a stira, so he had to consciously force his hand to Shech. Right, but a person, right, because God didn't want him to do that, Kate, obviously, right? Al tishach yadcha, don't touch the nar. Atas lemu'uma. So, from our perspective, we have to appreciate our bodies. The body is so holy. The body is so holy. We're so busy all the time talking about the neshama. We don't talk about the body. We're learning, right? The body is so holy, and the body is holy because the 10 spheres. But the body is holy because on a much more pratistika level, there are literally 613. Aspects of the body that are noveya, not just they symbolize, but they flow forth. We spoke last, that's not a mushal, right? It is the thing. It flows forth from those 613 spiritual sources of light. So the Rebbe says that the mitzvahs are koima shlema v'hemechayin es kol ha-koimos. And that aspect of those 613 lights, which are really 620 lights, 620 gematria keser, what's called in Kabbalah the Tarach Amudei R. 620 beams of light, pillars of light that are coming down from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They enliven not just the Koimas Adam, which is the Bechina of Tzelem Elokim, but we know that every realm in the physical existence is aligned with every other realm. And those three realms are Koimas Adam, that's called generally Nefesh. Then there is the Koima, there is the structure of physical space around us with all the things that fill it. That's called generally Olam, the world. And then there is the structure of time, and that's generally called Shana. Olam, Shana, and Nefesh. Says the Rebbe, this 613 template that becomes the Tzelem Elokim in the human body is reflected also in the Koima of space as well as in the Koima of time. So these mitzvahs are koima shleima behem echayin es kol hakoimas hein koimas adam, hein koimas oilam, hein koimas shana. Ki oilam shana nefesh, hein mekablam achiyas mitzvahs. They get all their energy and their light from the mitzvahs kamei shekasa, as the pasuk says in Tehillim v'chol ma'asehu be'emuna. All of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's maisim is with emuna, uksiv, kol mitzvaysecha emuna. What is that emuna that's mechaya all the mitzvahs? That's mechaya all of Hashem's maisim is the mitzvahs, because kol mitzvaysecha emuna, right? And kol ma'asehu be'emuna. These two things. Says the Rebbe HaKadosh Baruch Hu, achtus pashut ima mitzvahs. Pretty radical statement. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is absolutely one with the mitzvahs. Doesn't elaborate. He just says Hashem is achdus pashut ima mitzvahs, and the mitzvahs are called, Tanya speaks about this, Avra Demalka, right? A person, literally, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the mitzvah. It's a very big idea in Chabad, which is quite radical, right? That when you hold a mitzvah, das is Eibishter. You know, like this is Atzmus even, like they'll say, which is very radical from a theological standpoint. This is God. It's not the mamish like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because this is the will of Hashem, and Hashem is synonymous with His will, and it's melubish and sitzes. This is Eibishter. You have to understand that. Rebbe Nachman said something similar. People gloss over it because it's not even in any of the major Breslov Svarim. I don't even believe it's in Chaim Moran. I think it's brought down in the oral, sort of the Torah Shebal Pev Breslov that later became Svarim like Chochmah R, Siach Sarfei Kodesh. There's a whole world. Sorry, Aiden doesn't know about this yet. Aiden said, "Oh my gosh, there goes his paycheck." So there's a whole world of other Breslov Svarim. You know that, and that's really where the good. If you're on the really good stuff, yes, a whole different world. But in there, it says that the Rebbe was one time sitting at a Pesach Seder, and he picked up his matzah. And he said, when you hold the matzah, you hold Elokus. He said, matzah is Elokus. It's godliness. This is divinity. You know, it's an amazing thing. You sit by the Seder, you pick up a piece of matzah. This is not, it's holy because it's a mitzvah, because, you know, this is Elokus. This is God. This is mamish God. Achdus pashut ima mitzvahs. Amazing thing. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running His world in a way that, at least from our perspective, we could see clearly is the Bechina of Tikkun and Seder, even though Klapi Shmaya, every locus Seder is Seder. We're going to learn that B'ezras Hashem as we get to the second chelik of Likutei Moharan, and we take a look at Torah Pei Beis. What a tiyul b'paradise this is. We're just wandering through the orchard. You know, it's incredible. So when the maisim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from our perspective, appear to be flowing forth from the sphera or the energy of chesed, where everything is in order and everything is going the way that we perceive it needing to go, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu mesamech behem u'mesanig behem, then there's the aspect of simcha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has. Kamay shekasav yismach Hashem b'maisav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is b'simcha with the maisim when they flow forth from the midah of chesed. Chesed is always simcha, chesed. It's flowing forth from that place. Kamay bal malacha, like a person who is creating something, sha'isa ezu kli, where he does some kind of vessel that he's creating. Va'akliu yafeh, and the thing that he's making is coming out beautifully. Azayim mesanigba, so he has incredible pleasure from it. Va'asimcha shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu hu melubeshes ba'amitzvos ke'emach dusay. The simcha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when everything in the world is going the way that it's supposed to go, is melubash, is enclosed within the mitzvahs, because ke'emach dusay. So what he's saying, an incredible thing. So umisha oisa ha-mitzvah b'simcha me-ha-mitzvah ba'atzma, a person who has no negias in his engagement with mitzvahs for any schar and olam haba, but just for the purpose of dveikus, that drop melting into the ocean, that intimacy, that feeling one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, knowing that our souls are in this world doing what they're supposed to do, wrapped up in talis and tefillin, gewalt, mamish and olam haba. So such a Jew, kishenichnas ba'simcha shebemitzvah, when he goes into the joy of the mitzvah, really, hu nichnas b'simchas HaKadosh Baruch Hu shemisameach b'maisav. The joy that he's feeling in the mitzvah is God's joy in the fact that people do mitzvahs, and the fact that the world is doing and happening and unfolding in the way that the world is supposed to happen and unfold. V'zeh b'chinas yismach Yisrael ba'aisav. So there's this coming together of the Yismach Hashem b'maisav, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is b'simcha with the maisim that are ketikunan, and that's met, or that mingles and that intertwines with the Yismach Yisrael Ba'aisav, where there's joy that the maid has with the maker in the same way that the maker has with the maid. And these two joins, these two smachot, these two joys join together and they mingle.
So it's an exponential growth.
What's that?
You've got exponential growth in the scham. Because the scham is mitzvah, that it's exponentially growing. So you enter the mitzvah, because into the mitzvah he has the simcha about the Baruch Hu, having a simcha of him doing the mitzvah, and he has a simcha about that simcha, and it just keeps.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I heard last night, mitzvah gedolah liyas b'simcha. It's a simcha gedolah liyas b'mitzvah.
Beautiful. Both? Mamish both. Yes. Yismach Yisrael ba'oisav, Yismach Hashem b'maisav. These two joys go together. The B'ditcher Rav says that Torah, by the way, in Likutei on Sois Asis B'Hashem. Sois Asis. Says there, Ani Sameach b'zeh she'ani mesameach. Right? I'm happy because I'm making God happy, and I'm making God happy. I'm happy. If I'm happy, I'm making God happy. And then Chozer Chalila. That's Sois Asis B'Hashem. Nimtza k'sheyesh ezud tsar v'di'ah. So listen to this. He says, Memela, if there's a tsar and din in the world, whether it's ba'olam shana nefesh, on any kaima of the world, whether it's in the human being or the human race, whether it's in the realm of time, whether it's in the realm of space, as I bevadai nigra b'simchas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mood, kiviyachol, so to speak, or the expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a little bit lessened. The simcha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a little bit less than right? When things aren't happening in the world the way that they're supposed to happen, when there's a gzardim coming down to the world, because over there it's speaking about the mabul, there's a little bit of a diminishing in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's joy, because of course everything is always going according to plan, right? But at the end of the day, we, from our perspective at Bechira, there's a l'chadchila, but there's a b'di'ah, but there's a be'ita and an achishena, even though l'klape shmaya, everything's going the way that it's supposed to, and that's why there's bate broi, bate gavoy, the Gemara says that there's no crying in the inner chamber, but there's crying in the outer chamber, right? But there's a place where there's a little bit less of a joy. There's galas hashchina, there's imay nachi b'tzara. Kamaisha kasv isyatzev alibai. Kamaisha amru, like the aspect of the shechina says, shechina ma'ameres kalanim iraishi, kalanim izrai. The shechina's pained in the head, pained in the hand, which is a reference clearly to tefillin, right? Kalanim iraishi, kalanim izrai. If everybody can mute themselves on the call, please, when you join. Thank you so much.
Why didn't you turn your volume?
It is. It's turned all the way down. Kalanim Iresha, Kalanim Izrai. Says the Rebbe, V'zeh nichnas b'soich hasimcha, a person who enters into the joy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the mitzvahs, yachol bevadai leida lefi inyan hasimcha. That person's an incredible thing. That person's subjective experience and level of joy is an indicator as to where Hashem's at. Impu koidim gzardin, umula achar gzardin. If the simcha is b'shleimus, then the person knows my joy was novea from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's joy. Yismach Yisrael ba'oisav, because Yismach Hashem b'masav. If all of a sudden the person is not feeling so joyous, says the Rebbe, a person can get to such a madrega where they've so cleansed their own negias and their own like regular emotions and stuff that they know for sure that it's not coming from a subjective place. It's actually an indicator as to where God is at kiviyachol vis-a-vis his governance of the world. And if the simcha is less, then he knows that it's la'achar gzardin and something's happening. So the tzaddik's able to know something's happening, but says the Rebbe, it gets much more specific. Because a person can come to know on what chelik of the bria that gzar din is falling on. And this is mamash b'chin of nevuah, right? Because he's able to already see the future. Why? Because Yava Verina Noisei Alamoisav is Rosh Hashanah Navi. And he's nisnabe bezeh, b'asfaklaria meira. Says the Rebbe, that's mamash b'chin of prophecy. So he's able to know gam yachaleda al eze chelek me'akoyme nigzar adin, what part of the world is going to be affected ki ideal of ikoymas hamitzvahs, because all the mitzvahs relate, like we said, to the whole koyma of the body, and the body relates to the koma, to the structure of space and the structure of time. It all goes lefi the mitzvah. If he's not able to do mitzvahs that relate to the head, right? Right, like wearing a black hat, for example. No, I'm kidding. Like wearing tefillin, and like other mitzvahs that relate to the roish. So then yedash adin nigzar al rashi olam shana nefesh. Incredible thing. Then he's able to know that there's going to be something that's coming down into the world that's going to impact the bechina of the rosh of olam, shana, or nefesh. He knows, because the simcha is not so strong. The chen b'shar koymas ha-mitzvahs. Can you imagine that? If a tzaddik mamish knows what every mitzvah is and what it correlates to, the beprati pratius, and he knows all of a sudden, can you imagine? That's how the tzaddikim knew things. Because the Baal Shem always knew there's a gzeira coming down. We have to do this tikkun and this. How did they know that? Says Rebbe Nachman, he reveals at least one way that the tzaddikim knew this. Because they had so cleansed their own egoic layers of experience, so that when they engaged in a mitzvah, there was no zich, there was no sense of self, there was just total bittul into the Ein Sof. Yismach Yisrael ba'oisav, and in that place they mingled, they met with Yismach Hashem b'masav, that all of a sudden, imagine a Jew goes, and he's about to shake lulav, and he feels like he can't break past the barrier. So you and me, it's because, we didn't have our favorite cereal that morning. It was like something, we know that something happened, but it's tzaddik, there could only be one explanation. Must be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not expressing so much simcha. Wait a second, what mitzvah is this? Lulav. That relates to the hands. The yadayim relate to whatever it is. And praprati pratis, that part of the yadayim, they know there's a gzar din coming down the pipeline.
That is exactly what the Avraham thought.
And chanami, okay? Because the mitzvahs can be the tikkunim. That's true. That's true. But tefillah also. So yeda sha'adin nigzar al rashi olam shana nefesh v'chim b'shar koymas ha-mitzvahs. And this is what Chazal say, b'Shabbos, zachreu me'echad b'Shabbos. You're going to go into the 6 days of the week, bring Shabbos with you. What's Shabbos? Erev Shabbos, right? Mamish was sitting. So, what's Shabbos? Hainu simcha v'tainug olam haba. Shabbos is olam haba. Shebechina Shabbos is me'ein olam haba. That's the tainug. That's the oineg of Shabbos. Yargish b'sheishis me'amaisa. Bring it into your Maisa HaMitzvahs. Make sure that you taste Olam Haba in your mitzvah observance. And again, we can't get to the pinnacle of that Madrega. Maybe that's for Tzadikim Elyonim. But some Bechina we can reach. Bring it into Shebehem Nivru Olam Shana Nefesh. Bring it into the 6 days of the week, the Sheishis Maisa, during which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Olam, Shana, and Nefesh. Zachreu me'echad b'Shabbos. Bring Shabbos, the Simcha v'Olam Haba, into the 6 days of the week. V'zeu b'yoy mo'ititein schare. You have to be able to make sure to pay a worker on that day. Says the Rebbe, but it means more than that. Sheyehei schare ma'amitzvos ba'atzman. If a person is serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the level of b'yoy mo'ititein schare, you get the schar right, and then the pasuk says v'loy sav alav hashemesh. What does it mean on a simple level? Before the sun sets, give the person his schar. Sav alav hashemesh, says the Rebbe, that's after your sun sets, meaning after a person goes up to Shemayim. Says the Rebbe, don't wait until the sun sets to enjoy Avodas Hashem, to taste a little bit of schar. You can have schar in this world. After the neshama leaves the body, a person can experience that right here and right now. Let's go a little bit weiter. Says the Rebbe, the primary joy is in the heart. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have placed simcha in my heart. That's where a person feels the simcha. But it's impossible for the heart to truly feel joy until a person straightens out the heart, smooths out all the creases, takes out all of the corruption and all of the distortion and all of the wrinkles. Slave, that a person should have a clean heart. Ein b'libenu ela echad. Ma tamari ein la'ela leiv echad. Af Yisrael ein la'ela leiv echad la'aviyim shabashamayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam, Yashar, v'hema bikshu cheshboinus rabim. They branched out in millions of ways, but to bring it back to Yashrus Halev, that I only want one thing. I only want dveikus. I only want dir alain. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Va'az yizkel simcha, and then a person can taste joy. Right? Nesata simcha belibi. Simcha is in the heart, but the only way to feel that simcha in the heart is uli yishrei leiv simcha. You have to have a yashar leiv, otherwise you can't have joy. How do we get rid of that kamimia shabalev? How do we get rid of that aspect? Says the Rebbe, mafshitin al yedei ra'amim. You get it out through thunder. Thunder gets away that kamimia shabalev, and that's an open gemara in brachas. The only way to clean out that kamimius, that distortion of the heart, is through thunder. And it means on a simple level, thunder shakes a person. Okay, today we became such stupid academic chachamim, that we know the thunder is nothing to be scared of. It's just whatever scientific stupidity. But back in the day when people were mamish smarter and they didn't yair it into science, mamish much smarter and much healthier, much holier, thunder was it shook them up. Shook them up. We live in like a postmodern world. We don't understand the way that humans used to live. They were mamish at one with nature. Today we became chachamim. We're not chachamim.
Like kids.
Huh?
Kids.
Like kids, mamish. They were mamish childlike. And they were so in tune, like the world worked. It worked for them. And now it's like kids who, they school the whole system and they figure the whole thing out. It's like, it's mom, and it destroys it. It ruins it. The Wizard of Oz, it's that Bechina, because that's really what the story is. You pull beside the curtain and there's no one there. But all the while that the curtain is pulled, Kevald, and that becomes their reality. It's a big, deep thing, this, so now humanity has pulled away all the curtains but the world used to work religiously. Thunder worked. But says the Rebbe, it means something else as well. Because you can't really manufacture that kind of thunder all the time. It happens when it happens. But ra'amim v'bechinas kol, says the Rebbe, thunder is the aspect of a loud sound. We have to daven with voice. I'm telling you, Chevra, sometimes you feel like synagogues are where prayer goes to die. It's like, there's prayer there because that's the graveyard for prayer. That's just where prayer. Who's praying? We need to hear voices, Chevra. It's not meant to be silent. I'm sorry to tell you. You have to daven with kol. We should hear people daven. Kabbalah Shabbos, sometimes you have to turn around, make sure there's still people in the room. It's crazy. It's crazy. For sure, Kabbalah Shabbos, you have to sing with all your heart. But to daven, and it's not an Indian of having a good voice. Some people tell me, it's okay, you memela, so you can sing because you sing. I don't sing. It's don't sing, but use your kol. Not to whisper tefillah. Use your kol. And don't worry about disturbing the person next to him. That's his problem, not your problem. And if he doesn't like it, he can also daven loud, and then he'll hear himself too. I'm sorry. We must daven with kol. It's so important. So the Rebbe says that's called thunder. A person davens with sound. He says, Mamish, this is thunder. Because it's brought in the Zar, Pinchas kat kalanafik va'araba avi mitra. When the sound is heard, va'araba avi mitra, and rain falls from the heavens, ishtama kala libriyasa, the people hear the voice of da'in and ra'amin, and that's what thunder is. There's a kalanafik, but the voice comes out first, and then araba avi mitra, and then the rain falls. So the ikar ra'amim he megvuras, k'may shekasav, v'ra'am gevuraisa mi is Binah. Thunder comes from the place of gevura. Ubeshvil za'anam avarchan, and that's why the bracha we make on thunder, shekaychay u gevurasay marei aylam, malei aylam, because it's gevura. Va'gevura same bechinas koyach u gevura. So it's kol with gevura. Says the Rebbe, you can produce thunder in your own life every day. Sha'adam moitzias hakol b'koyach gadol. You mamish daven loud. You daven with a call, What are we withholding for? And v'hakol hu pageh ba'avei mitra. The voice that you're saying, the thunder goes up to the clouds of your brain. It goes up to the Ave Mitra, to that place of matar, of rain. Shemesham yarden tipin kamashikasa bazar kadosh be'er ma'im chayim and oizlam and navanim and lebuna demoicha. That there's a place in the brain where thoughts are flowing down, and that's the bechin of water be'er ma'im chayim, and it flows down min levanayin, from that place of levanayin, which is white, but that's libuna demoicha. That's the white matter of the brain that's producing Ave Mitra thoughts that flow down. This will finish. When that sound reaches your ears and it goes into the brain, and that is able to bring the mind, to open it up and to allow it to begin to impact the heart. And then a person is able to have simcha in the leiv, uli yishrei leiv simcha. There are many more ramazim that are connected to this that the Rebbe is going to bring. We have to finish now, but Ezra Hashem will pick it back up Monday morning, b'siyata d'shmaya. Highly encouraged over Shabbos, if you can, sit for an hour or two and just mamish, even just without thinking about it so much, just read Likutei Moharan from the beginning. And if you could do it with a call, all the better. But mamish, just fly through it as much as you can, as quickly as you can, and you'll see slowly but surely, we're able to consolidate the ideas. They go in. Lo yalimare ikar ela maisa. We should mamish do this, and we should be zecher to a thunderous davening that's able to lahashet hakmim shebelibenu. Yasher kach, Chabra. Thank you so much for joining.
האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני